Hello Internet, welcome back to Cataclysm, our tutorial series. Once again, just as a heads up, dealing with some things in my personal life, trying to just make some really short episodes to build up my backlog because I haven't really been mentally in the right frame of mind to be doing this lately. But I also don't want to fall behind. So I thought we were talking this episode about the health stat in Cataclysm and what exactly that means. Now, this is a hidden stat in the game. Someone told me if you have the, how do we do this, player mutate, the self-aware trait, that it would show you your hidden health stat. So let's go ahead and debug our self-aware. I don't see a health stat in the app menu, maybe. No. Put on some extra pounds, nothing too excessive. I don't see anything about our health stat. Someone told me you could see it with self-aware, but that does not appear to be the case, which makes sense to me because it's in sort of an abstract concept. It's not actually like your health, right? You wouldn't be aware of precisely how healthy you are. You would just have a vague idea. So, what we can do is check this in the debug menu. So, basically the health stat in the game is supposed to be a measure of your kind of just this not arbitrary, just kind of vague notion, this kind of nebulous thing of how healthy your character is. It's not super great. Like, look, I love Cataclysm. I love the developers of Cataclysm. I've exalted the virtues of this game many times in my career. I've devoted a huge portion of my time and my YouTube channel to Cataclysm, and that should be indicative to you of how great this game is. The health system in the game is one of my least favorite systems in the whole game. And the reason for that is because a lot of the numbers are arbitrary and because it doesn't have a huge... It just doesn't feel like a valuable... Okay. Well, let's talk about the health stat. Don't get all abstract with it. Basically, your health is a number that you do not know. I think it ranges from... negative 200 is the maximum negative health. And I assume positive 200 would be the maximum positive, but I actually don't know the positive number. And it's just a scale of how healthy your character is. Now, what does that mean for the most part? Not really very much. You'll start getting messages if you have bad health. It'll say things like, yo, you're not feeling very well. It affects your recovery rate of certain things. So, like, let's say we get... so in one of my playthroughs pretty recently, we had a cold. And a cold is like something that takes over for a week or two. You cough a lot. You need to find cough syrup and kind of recover from that cold. And then when you have a chance at recovering, so every now and then it will roll for a recovery chance and say, okay, do you recover today or do you have to wait until the next tick when we check again? Your health stat influences that. So the healthier you are, the more likely you are to recover from a cold. If you are sick... or if you're unhealthy, you're more likely to get negative status effects like the cold. So in general, it's not super relevant because most of the things that affect you, like poison or parasites or fungus or whatever, those things are from certain exposures. Like if I drink unclean water, or if an enemy that causes parasites attacks me, or fungal infection attacks me, that causes those things. Your health is not super relevant in that situation because it's a question of, did I drink dirty water or did I not? It doesn't matter really what our health stat is. So most of the effects in the game aren't like that, but most of the things that reflect our health are. So colds, flu, that kind of thing are affected by your health stat. And again, your chance of recovery. Now, some people on Discord have told me that your hidden health stat also influences the amount of HP you recover. But I've also been told by people on Discord that that is not true. So I actually don't know whether it affects your HP regen or not. I would assume that it does because it makes sense to me that a healthier human being heals faster than an unhealthy human being. But I actually don't know that that's the case in Cataclysm, so I can't say that for certain. So let's go take ahead and take a look at our health stat. Again, it's a hidden stat, so we have to... info? Nope, it's under player. And we will go to edit player. And we're going to look at our health stat. So currently our health is 10. The health modifier is 10 and we have 0 radiation. Now I believe, so radiation will tank your health stat. So don't be irradiated. It's just generally a bad thing to have happen to you. Health modifier, I believe, is a temporary value, and this is affecting our more permanent health value. So our health is currently 10, and we have a positive health modifier, which means this is likely to trend upward, or maybe it means we're trending towards 10. I'm not 100% on how that works. But the value we're looking for here is 10. Our health is 10. So again, it ranges from like negative 200 to some high number in the positives. 10 is not bad, but 10 is not good. We're very much near the baseline. So how do we affect this number? Primarily, it's gonna be food and drink that are affecting this. Now, the numbers attached, you can mostly use common sense. So, like for instance, if we nope, don't step in the fire. If we go to eat something and we go to I don't know, sugary cereal, that sounds like something that would be unhealthy. So that might negatively affect our health. Cookies, junk food in general, you can apply the general rule of thumb, which is like junk food is bad for you. Does self-aware maybe show the food value of your health stat? No, it doesn't. Well, that's a bummer. That would have been nice. I don't know why people told me that it affected your health stat, but it doesn't. Mutating does affect your health stat. Not mutating by debug, I don't think does. But if you're doing a lot of mutating, I do believe that can tank your health stat because eating mutagen is not good for you. But so there's really no way to know for sure what makes your health stat go up and what makes it go down. You can apply some rationale to it, like junk food is bad for you and fruit and veggies are good for you, but that's actually not really the case in Cataclysm. Most of the time, food have completely arbitrary numbers assigned to them. So some things are listed as healthy that you wouldn't expect to be healthy. So the go-to for most people when they're trying to boost their health stat is to drink a lot of pine needle tea, herbal tea, any kind of tea usually bumps up your health stat. But how would you know that as a player? You would think, drinking water is probably good for you because you should always drink water. Or, hey, I found some like protein drinks. You would think those would be maybe healthy for you. But a lot of those things don't have a positive health value associated with them. Similarly, some things that you expect to have a negative value don't have a negative value. And because there's no way of knowing this as the player, you just don't know. So it's just stuff you learn over time. So for instance, I think bacon is pretty bad for you. Eating fat is pretty bad for you. So like if we kill an animal and butcher it, we can make cracklins out of the fat because they have tons of calories. It says 200, but you actually get a huge portion out of it. So it's many, many calories out of one chunk of fat. And cracklins are bad for your health because they're basically fried fat. And that makes sense. But they're a good source of calories, so a lot of people will eat them. Again, how would you know that tea is what you need to drink to really boost your health stat? You wouldn't know that unless you played the game and you learn that. And I've pulled up some of the JSON files from the game just to show you. So what we're looking for is a healthy stat. So here we have Toastums. Now, if you don't know, Toastums are the in-game equivalent of a Pop-Tart. Now, Pop-Tarts are not good for you. If you've ever eaten a Pop-Tart in real life, they're pretty garbage, and they're just filled with sugar and pretty bad for you. But if we look here, there's nothing here that mentions a negative health penalty, and that's because there is no negative health penalty on Toastums. So even though you would think like, oh my God, it's just sugar and a thin layer of fruit flavoring that's probably not even real fruit, they're actually not bad for you. But if we scroll down, I'm in a junk food JSON, by the way, and we look at some other things, we go, it's just more toaster pastries. Here's some popcorn. Now, popcorn, you would think is like, I don't know, it's plain and unseasoned, I guess. Point is, it has a positive health value. No, don't edit my files. I don't want to do that. It has a +1 healthy. It's healthy for you. So popcorn is a healthy food that actually boosts your health stat. I would never have guessed that. But if we come down here and it's just essentially salted popcorn, all it is popcorn but with salt on it, you'll see this has a -1 health stat. Why would adding salt to a food take it from being healthy to being unhealthy? Like you would think, it would just take it down to 0 or something. Instead of being healthy, it just won't have an effect on your health stat. Well, no, it's actually actively bad for your character to eat salted popcorn. Buttered popcorn is a little bit more understandable because butter is fat and whatnot. But like you would not expect salted popcorn to go from healthy to unhealthy. And that's what I mean. A lot of these values, there's no, basically, some things in Cataclysm come with a formula, right? Some things in Cataclysm are based on real world numbers. It's very easy, let's say, to find pretzels in real life. Just mark down how many calories are in the pretzels and then put that directly into Cataclysm. And it makes sense. There's a system to it. It uses a real world value. We can just pull the recommended daily vitamins from a package of pretzels and we can know precisely what that is. Other things are completely arbitrary. They're based on your own interpretation of these products. So for instance, pretzels give a 4 bonus to morale. That's an arbitrary number. There is no system in place to decide what food should have a positive or negative fun, how fun it should be. It's just based on whatever the creator has decided. Health is the same way. So there are tons of items in Cataclysm that should have a negative health, but don't. There are tons of items in Cataclysm that should have a positive health, but don't. And the numbers are completely arbitrary. They're up to whoever created the item. And a lot of times they're not balanced against each other. So sometimes you will get food that is way more healthy than you would expect it to be. And because there's no real system in place to set up specific numbers, it gets let into the game. So health, this is the main reason that health is not a good system, in my opinion, because you can't reliably say, like here, we have chocolate-covered pretzels. They're salty, they're covered in chocolate. They have no negative health ramification. But lightly salted popcorn has a negative health ramification. And so it is impossible for you to know what is good for you and what is bad for you without looking in the files, because you can't just apply common sense to it. Some stuff you can generalize and say, okay, well, most junk food is bad for you, but that's not true. So health is really tricky. I also brought up the dairy Jason, but I don't think it matters. Buttermilk is healthy? I mean, whatever. Look, it's gross. Buttermilk, if you don't know, is the fluid left over when you churn milk into butter. It's healthy, though. I mean, I guess it would have a lot of nutrients, but like, it's healthy, though. And so that's just, you know what I'm saying. And here's yogurt, and yogurt is not healthy, but yogurt in real life is actually a really good food for you to drink. So like, look, point is, the health stat is pretty arbitrary. It's hard to know. And butter is not unhealthy. It's literal butter. If you eat a stick of butter, it should negatively impact your health. Look, whatever, you get my point at this point. Butter is bad for you. You should not just eat a stick of butter. But apparently by Cataclysm standards, it's perfectly fine to do so. So what I'm hoping for, we talked in our healing episode about how, did we talk about this? I don't know if we did. In between 0.E and 0.F, they're going to be implementing a wound system in Cataclysm. This will mean that you'll have to do more. I mean, I often use the word surgery, but that's not really a fair word to use. But like, your character will have to give more medical treatments to themselves in order to deal with different wounds that they suffer in combat. And I'm hoping that when they rework the healing system and body parts and stuff, the actual wound system, I'm hoping they will address health as well, because it seems likely to me that your health stat will influence how quickly you recover from surgeries or treatment. So I'm really hoping it gets reworked. It's something that's been needing to be done for a long time. Like I said, all the numbers are very arbitrary. So basically what's going to happen is if you have a really bad health, you'll start getting messages about how you're not feeling well today, or your muscles are stiff or whatever. If you have really positive health, it'll say like getting up feels easier today or something like that. And so when you start getting those messages, you can adjust, but really the only way to adjust is to learn what items work and what items don't. And you'll just learn those over time. Unfortunately, there's no way I can relay to you how to quickly boost your health stat. What I would recommend is drinking a lot of tea. That usually is the go-to because you get thirsty pretty frequently. It's pretty easy to chug a lot of tea over the course of one day, and each time you drink tea, it boosts your health a little bit more. So tea is a real go-to. Pine needle tea in particular is a renewable source, a very easy source of things. We can just go out and harvest pine trees, which give us pine boughs, which can be converted to pine needle tea. The problem is that requires a book recipe. and a survival skill, I believe. You can make herbal tea. You can grow wild herbs. You can forage wild herbs from those tiles, like when we foraged in our foraging episode. You can find wild herbs. They can also be planted and grown, so you can grow a lot of wild herbs and then make herb tea. And then there are also tea shops and things in the game that give lots and lots of tea, because tea is a pretty common thing. It actually bothers me how many houses don't have tea. I understand it's America. Most Americans drink coffee is their drink of choice, but like I'm a tea guy, and I have in my house probably, probably like 400 bags of tea at the moment in the pantry. So like, I do think tea should be one of those things you find in basically every house, but it's also America. People don't drink as much tea. But yeah, you can find tea bags. If you hit a tea shop, you can find quite a lot of tea. Keep yourself in tea for a long time. So teas are really how most players boost their... A lot of people will have a tank in their vehicle devoted solely to pine needle tea or whatever, because they know that that's a reliable way to boost their health stat. I really hate that. I know... like it's a system in the game that you have to work around, but I really hate doing that because it's very min-maxy, it's very meta, it's not very role-play-ish to go out and say, I'm going to drink 6 gallons of tea because have a cold. That kind of stuff really bothers me, so I'm really hoping they rework the health system. The problem is, and the reason it hasn't been done, I would assume, is just because it's a ton of work that no one's really interested in doing. Because you would have to set up a system and say, okay, well, look, these are my criteria. This is what qualifies as a healthy item. This is what qualifies as an unhealthy item. Here is the range of health effects that I'm going to allow these items to have. If it's, got this particular ingredient or this particular fat content, we're going to give it a +1. If it's this particular, and they'd have to set up a system for that. So... hopefully I relayed information about the health system. It's a bad system. Like, again, I love Cataclysm. I love you developers. I'm not shitting on you, but like, it's a busted system that needs to be reworked. And I bet if you ask the dev team, they would tell you it's something that could do with a rework. I don't think they would be upset with me saying it's a bad system. I think it's a bad system. I think it was fine probably when it was implemented because they needed something to fill that gap, to give a vague idea of how healthy the player is. But it's just that so many of the numbers are arbitrary, and even as I have adjusted food stuff for mods and things, it's so obviously arbitrary. There's no system in place for setting out specific numbers. So hopefully that all makes sense. I'm trying to think of other things your health stat actually affects. Probably vitamin deficiencies should get a mention here, but currently they're not working in the game. They were turned off a while ago. So really no reason to talk about vitamins. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else that your health stat... I will say, okay, so your weight can affect your health stats. So like if you're morbidly obese, I believe it caps your health at a negative number. So if you're really overweight, you're never going to be able to get a good health stat because your weight affects your healthiness. So keep that in mind. But generally, you should be around average or overweight anyway. I imagine that the lower underweight tags also contribute to your health stats. So like I know morbidly obese does, but I'm guessing if you're also emaciated, you probably have permanent cap on your health that's in the negatives. So yeah, don't be, try to keep a good weight. I don't think there's anything else to mention about it. Yeah, I can't think of anything else, but hopefully that all makes sense. Hopefully you understand why I'm not a fan, and that it's not just some personal vendetta or anything. I have very good reasons for not liking it. And I just think it needs some work. I think this system as it is could work if there was a set system in place to determine how much every item should have. Like if we could quantify that and actually put numbers on it, I think it would be I think it would be acceptable. I don't think it's super robust, but I think it would be acceptable. Problem is, it's arbitrary numbers. There's no system in place. And you just have to learn over time, unfortunately, what items are good for you and what items are bad for you. So that's going to do it again. I'm trying to keep these into some short episodes so I could just record and, not feel bad about myself for not progressing on YouTube. So that's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the episode. Hopefully that all made sense. And I'll be back with more Cataclysm content in the near future. For now, that's it. See you next time.